live. How you doing? Welcome. I'm Dr. Paul. Welcome to Bridges Live. Welcome to The Healthy Mind. I'm about ready to get on this live. If most of you people are watching this or listening to this on the podcast, iHeart and iTunes Radio, I'd like to say thank you for all my sponsors and thank you for all the people who has joined me. You can also catch the live thing on my YouTube channel, Dr. Paul Dyer, Grandmaster, on my YouTube channel. You can also catch me on other Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. So let's get this show rolling here. So those of you who can hear me, yeah, we are going to go over the Healthy Mind, and this is Friday, so it's been going on all week. How you doing, Val? We're going over the Healthy Mind. Thank you for joining me here on Instagram. I am just getting up all my other stuff live and posted. And let's get this show started. How you doing? I am popping on here on Facebook and Periscope and all these other live channels. And I have to say thank you, welcome. So we're going to recap what we've been going on all week long on the Healthy Mind. And the reason why this is an issue here, and I hope you guys are doing your exercises, all you people out there, I miss all you, I just want to let you know that a lot. We're going over a Healthy Mind because of this situation we're in. And I got this question yesterday about, Dr. Paul, how do you know it works? And I was wrestling with that in a way not because of what I've studied, whether science and stuff like this or anything, because we can give you all the theories and analogies and the memes we want. I think we're still feeling a certain kind of way. And I was thinking about, and I want to say one of my daughters is about ready to have one of her babies, her first baby, any day now. She was due on Tuesday. We hope that her name is Hope, and she's coming today or tomorrow. I'm thinking about that. So as I was thinking about that, and then another one of my daughters went into the hospital. I don't think it's COVID related. Not that it matters, but she wasn't feeling well. She's been throwing up for over 2 days now and diarrhea. So I was thinking about when we're talking about the healthy mind and communication, and we know that communication is within ourselves, and we know that communication has a lot to do with what our internal speak is. So I wanted to do this. I thought it was been on my mind this morning. So I'm going to put down, so how do I know it works? It has nothing to do with what I think is right or what I could be right. For me, I go with every day. Well, here's what I mean. So for me, PTSD, suicide, Asperger's, let's see, children, let's see, death, grieving, mourning, let's see what else I could put just for me, let's see, breath, right? Black man. And of course, I can probably go down the list and make a list. So then, now I have, for my children, and if I have 9 children, so with children, because as parents, we don't always think about just ourselves or whatever. We think about our children probably almost synonymously, right? We think about it just as equally as anything could possibly be, right? So with my children, I think about death, suicide, depression, abuse, neglect, money, grandchildren, sickness, happiness. So these is just some of the things I think about, and there's more. There's more. There's when you have 9 children, there's more. When you have 1 child, there's more. So for myself, for my children, I can put this on daily. But here's the thing. How do I know it works? Choice. You have a choice to either live or die. That's it. That's how I know it works. And when you choose, this is important. When you choose, now you are involved. So for me, how do I know it works? This is daily. Every day, every moment, there's things that we all have on a daily basis that are on our hearts, minds, spirits, right? Each moment, each breath, each walk, each balance. And this is why I teach what I teach is the living sciences. This is why I do what I do on a daily basis, on a moment basis. Because we're all moving through, and this has nothing to do with COVID, pandemic, job, whatever. This has nothing to do with it. This is just, and so when you start adding the other exterior actions, the other environmental actions, the other things that are outside of you, and I'm not trying to control this, right? And we talked about this yesterday, that ego precipitates and causes this mediation between consciousness and subconsciousness. So, when you choose, and I choose life, living, now, understanding, intention, action. When you choose life, living, then you want to understand, not just want to know, because one of the things that will kill this out, remember, is ego. Because when we talk about the healthy mind, ego will start to pull you back into the subconscious. And I'm going to write down, since I'm wrapping this up on a Friday, about the healthy mind and communication. Because this is about communication, and I want to write this out. If you see me looking, because I'm seeing if anyone has any questions. But anyway, when we know about communication, we know that we are receptors. We go back and listen to the other podcasts, go back and listen to the other videos from last week, this whole week. We're receptors and we're transmitters. And the brain is growth and development. The mind is growth and development. The brain is a processor and producer. They're two different things. The mind can create. The brain just process. And if you're processing whatever you're doing, it's like even some of the words like when we hear the stimulus, we were like, well, what is a stimulus? Well, I was thinking, because I'm a science guy, stimulus in a cell has a lot to do with how it's a reaction to it. So anything you put into a petri dish with tissue creates a stimulus, meaning it has receptors and it has an avenue of what to do. So if you put a tissue that it's a stimulus and it usually goes towards an open field, especially if you put a nutrient in a stimulus dish, right? It'll go to the stimulus to open up to increase its receptors. So it's open to the nutrients. You put a toxin in a petri dish, and then it will pull back in this protective mode and then create a barrier around it. That's what cells do. So the words that people are using, this is where communication comes in. The words that people are using, it's purposeful to trigger a response, whether you know it consciously or not. It's doing it in an unconscious way. And it's creating either you into protective mode or to be open to receptors for you to receive. That's why when I was talking about before about communication, communication was often used to convey, convince, right? That's how it started out in the mid-20th century, and that's how it was studied on for different scientists. Remember, communication and languages was really brought under behavioral sciences. It was brought under behavioral sciences because they understood how it could influence people and how their body reacts. They've studied this more than you ever known this. And then if you thought about it, you were like, hey, that makes sense, Dr. Paul, because when I hear something, it triggers something. When I see something, it triggers something. When I smell something, it triggers something. But if you don't know that the communication, which 90% is internal, and between the ages of 0 and 8 is 80% of development of your conscious state to your subconscious action. 92% is unconscious transfer. So, in short, from the ages of 0 to 8, right? Just do this. 80% is what all you have done up to whatever age you are after 8. It's 80% that's already been developed. You use 90% of that unconsciously in 90% of your internal speak. So the things in this just if you have not developed, and this is where it comes a practice. Let me change this out here. If you have not developed a practice, a training, faith, if you have not developed a practice, a training, and a faith, then you are acting unconsciously of an age of a 0 to 8 years old. And that's incredible. That's incredible. If you don't know that you're acting, and if you have not developed your own personal training program, then think about what you're doing unconsciously. Think about how it's affecting you unconsciously. Think about how you are 90% internal speak. Because remember, when you're thinking about communication, this is about interpretation, right? Because that's the first thing we do, is that we interpret through our senses, through our external area. And that is what we were going through all week long, is how it got interpreted. Because if you don't, again, goes back to that understanding, because once you choose living and once you choose life, then you have to develop an understanding of the action of what is going on in your life, or in your brain, or in your physical, or in your spiritual, or in your soulful connection. And then you develop, after that, you develop a direct intention. Like, I'm going to change this, whether it be your health, physically, whether it be mental health, whether it be your spiritual health, whether it be your soulful health. It's kind of like when you fall in love. You make a decision to say, you know what? I'm ready for love. I'm not looking for love. I'm ready to love. Like tissues in a petri dish. When you put nutrients in it, it opens up to receive. That's the stimulus. It'll go right to it. If you put toxins in it, the tissues will pull back in a protective action. That is just what tissues do in a petri dish. You are billions of cells of tissue. And if you don't consciously, actively consciously, now, in a conscious state, we have ways of understanding what a conscious state is. Our higher consciousness, and I've done this before in last week when we were talking about the different levels of the mind between the rational mind, the wise mind, and the rational mind, the wise mind, and the emotional mind. That your highest conscious state is service. Your highest conscious state is service to others. Your lowest conscious state is survival. That means you're only looking for food, shelter, and safety. That's it. That's it. Nothing else. Just pull back in, and that's where that's what tissues do, and that's that protective mode. It pulls back. And it pulls back, and it creates a barrier like, this is all I need to do. Now the tissue, once it pulls away from toxins, you're like, that makes sense. It's toxic. It's bad for you. So why would I want to go towards something that's toxic? You don't. But you also, as you pull back long enough from a toxic issue, because you don't know how to get your receptors open for some nutrients, guess what happens to the tissue? The tissue dies. Okay? So you're either pulling back or you're opening up. And a lot of the times, if your tissues are doing its own thing, it's pulling back. It's creating this momentum force. And that's where I talked about cells before, and that's where I talked about the different atoms and how it reacts, and different electrons and protons. I did that the other day. Because remember, and this has everything to do with communication. Everything to do with communication. Communication is not just what's going on. Hey, honey, how you doing? My wife is on. She had said something that I said. I didn't say hello to her the other day, and I was like, oh, why is that? I don't know. So, if communication is what it is for us, and it's about our interpretation, and it's about how we're receiving something, and we don't know or understand how we are receiving it, then we're falling under the unconscious state. And if we're falling on the unconscious state, and most of the communication is 90% internal, then you're creating your own fear, you're creating your own difficulties, you're creating your own pullback from getting the nutrients you want, you're creating a disaster. How do I know it works? You have to practice it, you have to train it, and you have to have faith. That is it. That is the short of the story. Now, other forms of communication, people talk about the emotional part of communication. People talked about how we're communicating. I'm not so much concerned about how we're communicating, because if you don't understand how you're interpreting, then you're not really communicating, you're responding. There's a difference between communication and response. Responding isn't communicating. Why do you think I think that's what it is? Because you're so busy on trying to give an answer that you're not really listening. This is why there's so high suicide rates among people. And they say it's teenagers are really off the charts, but you think about the stars that we have lost, or the people that we have. I'm thinking of Prince just recently, because he had his anniversary of his death and things like that, and I'm thinking, all the people that were close to him, did they really hear him? Did they really see him? Did they really understand his pain? Now, don't know anything about it. I don't like to get into the things that I read and things and what people have said. But I think when it comes to like even Bourdain or Robin Williams, if you're suffering, if a person's suffering, and someone's talking to them and say, "Hey, are you okay? Are we listening? Are you listening, or are you ready to respond?" Because if you are listening through an interpretation, then you're trying to already conjure up what is good for you and not what's good for them. So, what helps? I think meditation helps. I think prayers help. I think communication helps when we are fully open and communicating. I think that developing an action helps. I think that when we are consistent with living a better life, choosing to live, choosing life, developing an understanding, developing intention, creating an action. The action is practice, training, and having faith, right? Those are the things that we want to do, is create those actions. So, and in that action, when you have an intentional action, that means you're involved. It's kind of like tomorrow morning I do weed training. I teach a meditation of the action of the breath. So when you create an intentional action of your practice and training and have intentional faith, then you start to align yourself vertically, and you start to ground yourself, and you start to transmit, and you start to receive, you start to give nutrients, and you start to accept nutrients. And that's important. And that's how we are going to move through this. That's how we're going to communicate better. That's how we're going to develop a healthy mind. Next week, I'm going to be going over the healthy mind and different organs, and how the healthy mind helps our organs and our heart and our liver and our spleen. I know I touched on a lot of part of the brain, because the brain is obviously a major function in the things we do with the healthy mind. And then if you don't have a healthy mind, how it affects your liver, your spleen, your stomach, and different things. So that is what we're going to go over next week. I will see you tomorrow for meditation practice, or the healing practice, or balance practice, and I do that same time in the morning. If you have any questions, please put the comments and contact me. And if you want to support the show, I think I have it up there of my PayPal. You can always send in cash flow or whatever your donations are, because I want to support the show, support the podcast, support the production. So I thank everyone for joining me, and everyone on the podcast, and iHeart and iTunes, and all my sponsors. So I wish everyone a great weekend, and I'll see everyone tomorrow if you want to join me for meditation class and balance class. But I'll see you back here Monday for another edition of Healthy Mind.